A very good afternoon and warm welcome to all for joining this session. On behalf of Buddhist Embassy, I would like to welcome Sister Tịnh Quang, who has joined to discuss on the topic Bhikkhunis achievements. Sister Tịnh Quang is the founder and director of Blue Heron Zen Buddhist Center community in Hamilton. She has acquired training and credentials in philosophy, human resources, addiction, and mental health from McMaster University Gestalt Institute. She is an excellent teacher who provides workshops, seminars, counseling to help and inspire all. We welcome you, sister, and thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, to begin with the discussion, I would like to ask you, sister, about what is the role of Bhikkhuni providing social services in the community in general.
I can't speak for all Bhikkhunis in all communities. I've lived where there, in Vietnam particularly, where there are children without families. They're taken into the monastery, and they are raised in the Dharma, and they're given 3 good meals a day, and they're educated, both secular and Buddhist education. And they're provided health care, which is something they would not have had the monastery not taken them in. At the moment, my monastery in Vietnam is supporting about 45 such children. Here, I offer teachings on Buddhist sutras and how it relates, hopefully teaching how it relates to their daily life. I try to show that rather than just give the teachings from the sutras. I also like to maybe even have discussions with students around how they can apply that in their lives. I conduct traditional ceremonies. I teach here meditation. I teach both Zen meditation and Vipassana meditation. I offer counseling for people who might have some problems, either in their secular life or within their Dharma practice. There are other community services that I'm involved in, such as volunteer at a restaurant for the poor in Toronto. And I also help, we prepare, well, we didn't do it because of COVID, we didn't do it this year, but we provide backpacks filled with sanitary items and toothpaste and socks and toques and etc. For the homeless. And I reside here in the Hermitage. As a Western monastic, I do not receive alms easily, so everything is done without any expectation of any alms or rewards of any kind. When I was living in the temple in Boston, the temple, before I'd gotten there, the temple had been broken into by some teenagers, and they had they really did a lot of damage there. They destroyed the Buddha statue. They painted on the walls. They did a lot of damage. And the police wanted to arrest these young people and incarcerate them. And the people who were running the temple at the time, there's some lay people. There was one nun who was living there, but they decided that instead of doing that, they wanted to educate about, because these children were not, they were Latinos, so they didn't know anything about Buddhism. And they had been told that Buddhism was devil worship and things like that. So they went and on behalf of the youth, the people at the temple decided to see if they could just educate them. So they had the kids come in, and they had to repaint the walls. The Buddha statue, well, the temple just got another one sent, probably it was from Vietnam. And then they realized that because whenever there was anything going on in the community on that particular street, the temple was not involved in that. So they would have street parties like barbecues and things like that, and they would have all of these things. So the temple started to get involved, and they started providing once a month, not only involved in the community with the street parties, with preparing food, taking people on tours of the temple, but they also once a month provided a vegetarian meal to anybody who wanted to come in and have a free meal based on that. And they became quite friendly with the community, and the community became friendly with them. So I think it was important that education, that's a big word that might use a few times today, education of people, rather than sending the youth to prison or wherever they would have gone in the States, to educate them. And the young people, the one boy, there were 3 or 4 that were involved, and the one boy became actually a member of the temple. So you can see that just by reaching out to the community, not just the Buddhist community, but the community as a whole, can be very, very helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate your hard work for the community. Moving further, were there any challenges in your path when you chose to become a bhikkhuni? If yes, how did you overcome it?
The challenges for me was, I'll give you a little bit of a history. I was studying to become a Zen Buddhist priest in the Korean tradition, and I'd studied there for a couple of years, and then I became ill, and I couldn't go for a number of months. So as I was becoming better, I was out, and I'd seen what I thought was a Dharma wheel on just a house. And I thought, that looks Buddhist, but I wasn't sure. So I took a risk, and I turned around and I went and knocked on the door, and a very kind monk came and opened the door for me. And I thought, he didn't know who I was, but he invited me in right away. He didn't know whether I was trying to sell anything. But anyway, I went in and we talked for a couple of hours, and I ended up helping them with their English, the monks that were there with their English. And so when I decided that I really wanted to become a bhikkhuni, which, you don't just hop in, at least in the Mahayana tradition, you don't just become a bhikkhuni. There's different stages that you have to go through, different ordinations before you become a bhikkhuni. And so when I decided that I wanted to, it became difficult because there's a big long story to this, and I won't get into it unless you want to ask me later. It's illegal to ordain non-Vietnamese people in Vietnam. So Westerners cannot be ordained there. But because of my master in Vietnam, who was very anti-government, decided he was going to ordain me anyway. So everything was kind of done hidden. I didn't know till the morning of my ordination exactly where it was going to be. So the only difficulty was actually with being chased down by the police in Vietnam. But other than that, there wasn't a problem. Once I was ordained, they couldn't do anything. They didn't bother me, and I was worried when I was leaving the country that they might wonder how my passport picture did not look like the person leaving the country, long hair and earrings and the whole bit when I was coming into the country, and when I left, I was a nun. And but the monks there told me not to worry about it, and the nuns, they said that they won't bother me because I'm Canadian, and they were right. They didn't bother me. They did kind of look at me strangely, but they let me out. So that wasn't a problem. So that was the biggest difficulty in becoming a nun in Vietnam.
Yeah. Thank you, sister, for sharing your past. Moving further, was there any safety concern that you experienced in Canada or while traveling in the world as a bhikkhuni?
I haven't felt any difficulties here in Canada as for my safety. When I was in Vietnam, I was warned all the time by the nuns to not just assume if somebody was dressed as a monk that they were monks, because the government, they do have an agency called the religion police, and they will send people out dressed as monks. So they just said not to trust monks unless the nuns or other monks that I knew them and could vouch for them. But I don't know what would have happened if I had befriended somebody who wasn't actually a monk, but I didn't really feel like I had any great safety problems. I must be naive or something. I didn't feel unsafe.
Thank you for sharing the experience with us. Sure. What's the perspective of people in the West towards the culture of Bhikkhunis? How could we change that?
Most of the difficulties that people have with Bhikkhunis in the Western culture is particularly if they were raised, I won't say just Roman Catholic people, but people who had bad experiences with nuns in the Roman Catholic tradition immediately are nervous around Bhikkhunis until they get to know them. And so that's as far as I said before, education is probably the best thing. And my actions have to reflect the Buddha Dharma. So my actions cannot go against what the Buddhist teachings are. So everything has to be done, everything kindness and compassion. So I'm not going to treat anybody badly. I might challenge them sometimes, but I'm challenging them hopefully in a compassionate way.
Thank you. That was really wise. I have a next question. Could you please walk us through the Bhikkhunis' achievement in the fast-moving world?
Well, I belong to an organization called Shakyadita International, and Sakyadita is a Sanskrit word meaning the daughters of the Buddha. So anybody who belongs to that, well, it doesn't have to be just women. It's an organization for Buddhist women and Bhikkhunis and all Buddhist nuns, not just Bhikkhunis. So that organization we've been working very hard to help getting ordination recognized in the Theravadan community. And one of the founding members of that organization is Venerable Dhammananda, who lives in Thailand, Chiang Mai in Thailand. And she was actually educated here in Canada. She went here to McMaster University, and then she went back to to Thailand, and decided she wanted to become a nun. So she went to Sri Lanka and was ordained there. But when she went back to Thailand, she had great difficulties. So she was instrumental in getting Sakyadita Canada, there is a Sakyadita International established. And with Sakyadita International, it was to educate around the history of nuns, that there were nuns, that the Buddha actually ordained 500 nuns in Vaishali, and that these nuns has been an unbroken lineage until in the Theravadan countries, and I honestly am ignorant about this. I'm not sure whether it was in Sri Lanka and or Thailand, or which country was the originating country, but it was mainly political, that the monks, that the women could not become nuns because they should stay home and look after their children and look after their husbands. And this was, a few generations ago, maybe, I'm not sure how long ago it was, 200 years ago, not that long ago in the scheme of things. And because of that, the lineage got broken within those countries. Having said that, there is some evidence, strong evidence, that there were nuns went from Sri Lanka into China and ordained women there. And probably at that time it was Vietnam and China were joined together. So within, I took Vinaya, the Dharmaguptakaya, Pratimoksha, so that when which is, when I've looked at that compared to the Theravadan rules of conduct for nuns, is exactly the same. The only difference is I have to take 100 more than the Theravadan nuns do. But that comes out of the Chinese. I'm pretty sure that the Chinese added 100 to the rules of the monastics. So it really didn't get broken. It just got changed. It got stopped in those countries, but the lineage actually continued on into China. And from China, it went to Korea, and Korea to Japan. And there are no Bhikkhunis in the Tibetan tradition. Now, I do know nuns in the Tibetan tradition who are Bhikkhunis, but they had to go to Taiwan, or several went to France, to Thich Nhat Hanh's monastery in France, and took Bhikkhuni ordination there. So they're Bhikkhunis, but they still practice within their own tradition, the Tibetan tradition. So that's, but the Bhikkhuni ordination has not happened at all yet in the Tibetan tradition. It has in the Theravadan tradition. So that's, what do we have to do that's different? Education. Venerable Dhammananda, I remember hearing her speak one time, and I was so impressed because she said so many, maybe nuns, Theravadan nuns, are angry because the monks won't let them become ordained, and the lay people don't want them to be ordained. And she said, because, this is a Buddhist teaching, everybody has been conditioned to believe what they believe. And they've been conditioned through their cultures and through their families. And she said, basically, we have to educate. Even the monks have been conditioned. So that's why they go against ordination for the nuns. So he said that they have to, it's education. And the evidence is there that that it's an unbroken lineage. It's just not within that countries, which that's geographical. It has nothing to do with the Dhamma.
It was really interesting. Thank you, sister. Finally, what would be your message to young women on International Women's Day celebration?
Well, to support other women is one thing. Because I come from maybe because of the way I grew up, I never separated men and women in that way. We were all people. And so I think just to recognize that that women are no different than men, and to support women who in whatever endeavor they want, whether it to become a nun or whether to become an entrepreneur of some sort. So it's around supporting one another and educating around difficulties that families have. Right now, apparently with COVID, I was talking to a woman who works in a women's shelter, and she says they are overrun with people. They don't have enough room because with COVID and people being so isolated, that domestic violence has increased. So, and that women can't even get away to even report the violence or to just get away from it for a while. So it's become a difficult thing. So supporting one another, supporting organizations that help women, and to support organizations that help men. I spoke to a man one time who told me that he'd used to have to call the police on his wife, his former wife, because she used to beat him all the time. So, I mean, it goes both ways, more prevalent the other way, but so we have to recognize that everybody has a story and everybody has difficulties, and that we support one another within whatever framework we can, to the best of our ability. If we can't do it financially, sometimes just being a good listener.
Yeah. Thank you, sister, for all the wonderful answers. And we are delightful to have you today in our discussion. I would thank you, everybody, for being the part of the discussion. I would also like to invite you to participate in our great event, Vesak, to be conducted in the month of May via Buddhist Embassy YouTube channel on Zoom. Thank you so much, sister, for spending your